So you never had your come to Jesus moment gambling?
I mean, I could tell you a real story.
Oh, go right on ahead.
I've never shared this one, and we're having some fun, so why not? Uh, so people like they hear BYU. So I'm religious. I grew up super conservative. My parents were super strict, right? So I remember the first time I got caught driving to Chumash in Santa Barbara and playing poker. And all I'm talking about are the good runs. But this is, I remember I worked at a buddy of mine's brother was the manager at like Sbarro Pizza in the mall. And I freaking made pizzas in high school. Senior year, I got to work that day and I wasn't on the sheet. I thought I was. I had confused the schedule. So I got there, which I think normally I'd go in and prep maybe 10 or 11 a.m. And I was like, my parents think I'm working for the next 8 hours. Why wouldn't I go play cards and go drive over and play? So I took some money, went, played at Chumash. I just played 1-2 no limit hold'em at the time, or excuse me, 2-5 no limit hold'em at the time. I'd buy in for $100 or $200. And it was an era in poker for people that are familiar with it that just was 7 people at the table had no clue. And the one person maybe that the other person at the table that did, you just stay away from playing hands with them. And it was so easy to beat. I remember running it up, probably my 200 to like 1,300. I remember thinking, this is great. I still have a few more hours and I'll drive back home. And honestly, and this part has never happened again in my life. And I lived in Vegas for 5 years. I'd meet people that want to just DJ on the blackjack table or play craps or whatever it is. I sat down at a blackjack table, which I usually wouldn't play just because I understood like I don't have an edge, but I was up like over $1,000 and I'm in high school and I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
I sat down with $100. I was just betting $5 a hand. The pit boss that's in the suit just walks up and takes over for one of the dealers, like taps her out. And generally when that happens, it's because he's like covering for someone's late for a shift. I'm not sure the reason to this day why. I was sitting at first base, so I was first to act. I was the first that he would deal cards to. And I still have no reason why he did this, but I think I had a black chip and then like a few reds because I maybe was up 15 or $20. And he's like, just bet the black chip on this one. And I was like, excuse me? He's like, bet the black chip. He just kind of said it like kind of quieter, like under his breath, just like kind of nodding towards me. And I trusted him, which I don't think I would have done if I wasn't up like 1,000 from poker. So I put the black chip out and it wins. And I pull it back and I was like, thanks, man. Nice call. And I go back to like $5 or $10 a hand. And he's like, no, put it back out again. And the shoe just went on an unreal heater. And the next thing I know, like 10, 15 minutes later, he's switching with someone else on a shift. And I was up like $3,300. I was like a high school kid who maybe had won a few $100 before. I remember I got third in a tournament once for like 800 or 900. But this was like a lot of money. And I was like, okay, holy cow. They had someone come and like comp me dinner too. And they were like, hey, you want to go get dinner? I was like, sure, like I'll get dinner. So as I'm sitting there eating my free dinner, I'm like, this is the greatest life ever. Back in the day, it was not a cell phone that was mobile like this with a lot of battery. It was a flip phone. At this point, I was like, well, maybe I should go play poker again. Like this run, like so good. Like, why would I leave? But I need to like make up an excuse so my parents don't know that I'm playing at Chumash right now and playing and gambling by myself. I actually didn't even go with friends. Like everyone else had jobs or were working or whatever. So I was just by myself. And I set up some sort of diversion where I said, after work, I'm gonna go play basketball with some friends. And after that, I'm gonna go to my buddy's house. I'm gonna spend the night. I had it all set up. My phone was like blinking. It died. But I was like, it doesn't matter. Like I'll be back by morning. All will be well. I can plug it in when I get to my friend's house or in my car even. I think I maybe had some sort of funky car chargers. Anyway, I know this is a long story, but it's good. Especially you'll appreciate it because you have the LDS tie. I go and I do play more poker. I sit down. I don't know why. I was like, I'm just going to play. It's only $200 buy-in. And honestly, I think I actually did win a little bit more, but it wasn't anything crazy. But all of a sudden, maybe 2 hours later, I heard over the intercom in the entire casino, I heard, Preston Johnson, will you please come down to like the front service desk? And I was just like, oh shit, this can't be good. I've never heard of something like this happening. I still have never heard anyone's name really called like that, unless like you have a vehicle maybe in the resort in Vegas that's beeping or whatever. So I go down and they're like, hey, your dad's on the line. And like my heart sunk. I was like, oh crap. So they needed me to get something in the morning for my sister who had some like gymnastics something or other, and they had just tried to call me quick to tell me about it, but my phone wasn't answering because it had died. It's like, oh well, he's at so and so's house, so they call so and so. Oh, Preston's not there, so they had to like really track, then try to figure out, talk to a bunch of my friends and find out where I was. Obviously I had been showboating and showing off and bragging to my friends, hey, I'm up $4,600. I'm at Schumacher. So a couple of them knew where I was. They told my parents. Anyway, my dad's like, don't drive home right now, because I think at this point it was midnight, 1 a.m. I don't even think they knew I would drive on the freeway. I was still like driving my dad's car and wasn't supposed to be driving very far. So I stayed the night, drove back in the morning. But no joke. And again, another to this day moment. The bank opens at 9 a.m. I'm driving back in. I'm like, hey, I have all this money. I'm going to deposit into my bank. I'm going to say that I made like 500 to $1,000. I'll keep like 1,000 on me. Why does an 18-year-old in high school need $1,000 cash on him? No reason. I have no clue why. I deposit the rest. I get home, and magically, my dad had this list of things I needed to start paying him for, like rent, gas on the car, insurance on the car. There was a couple other things. Oh, like new brake pads, that coincidentally added up to like $1,000, because when I got home, they asked how much money I had on me.
This sounds very LDS, by the way.
1,000. Yeah, of course it does. Now here's the coolest part. Does this part make sense? So they're trying to teach me a lesson, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, gambling can be bad. You want to do it responsibly, all of that. And there's like this 18-year-old kid of theirs that's been playing poker and blackjack or whatever else. So my dad, I grew up very comfortable and blessed. So for him, money, like he was also really conservative with money as well as life, but he didn't need the $1,000 himself. And so he's like, well, I'm going to teach you a lesson. And no joke, I remember to this day, he takes the $1,000. They were all in hundreds because I just got back from the casino. He puts it in the fireplace and he lights it on fire, and it just burns up right in front of my face. He's like, I'm going to teach you a lesson. This is what money means to me. And I just watched $1,000 burn up. And then that I had paid him for these things that he wouldn't have charged me for anyway. And then he takes the ashes and like puts them in a Ziploc, and he's like, now you can remember this. Something like that. It was the wildest thing. So that was my, like you said, coming to Jesus moment. I was like, holy cow, like they're trying to put me on the right path. But also I went down that path anyway. Now here we are. And so that's kind of like one of the, like, I guess, setups where I did really well early on. Otherwise, if I was losing, and like, I mean, I never would have just continued, but there were really big advantages to be had in poker back then in 2003 through like 2006. So I tried to maximize them and just kept playing. But that was a story that I've never actually told. So it hit me when you said coming to Jesus moment. And that's like the one gambling moment that just still sticks out in my mind, because he lit $1,000 on fire.
That's hilarious. But the only difference with me is my dad would have probably just kept $1,000 and bought a used Ford Ranger or something,
or gambled it behind your back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.